Greetings. Thanks for watching these videos. Today our topic is memo amounts. Memo amounts. This is cool technology, cool functionality that I think you'll enjoy using. And it's actually something that we're all very familiar with. And when you start seeing it, you say, you'll say, I always wondered what that was all about. And so let's get started. First off, we're going to work through a case. In order to work through the case, I'd like to show you what I have set up here first off, I have an account. Okay, let me show you the account that we've got set up here for our demo purposes. It's something like 83, so forth. It is literature expense right there. Okay, I've set up an account called literature expense, and just follow along with me a little bit. And I've required, it has, since it's an expense, for sure it needs fund, function, and restriction. But I've also set SDA organization as mandatory and details are mandatory. All right, under SDA organizations, we don't need to go and look at that. But under SDA organizations, I have all of the organizations within my field set up as an organization. Okay, and so under the analysis codes for SDA organization, maybe we should look at it. Let me just go over there. We've got I want to make sure that you're not confused. So let's look at analysis codes, and under org ID analysis, analysis codes, we have these organizations here right in the center category are all organizations within my field. Okay, so if I'm a union, you could look at these as conferences, or if I am a division, you could look at these as unions. That level of detail is not important, but they're just all within my region of my organization. All right, and I have also, if you recall, while we were over there on chart of accounts, we required details. So let's go over to the details code, and let's see if we can get this open here, all the details. And I have set up details here right in the middle using the prefixes L, meaning literature. Okay, and I have put in Christ's object lessons, desire of ages, patriarchs and prophets, and steps to Christ. Now remember, the details analysis dimension is your dimension. You can use it any way you want. The only advice or guidelines that we can give in using an analysis dimension is that you need to use the prefix lettering as a way to clump together one use of this and to keep it separate from another use. So you can see here that we're using the W to go in front of work in process elements for details. I'm using the L to go in front of my literature types. It looks like I was set up for inventory, and you could see that it's probably better to go ahead and put in a analysis code that becomes a header, like the I and the W here. Ideally, I should have an L row here describing what an L means. But the important thing is that you clump together the elements of similar usages within details. So you can use details to mean anything you want, and it can also be used to mean many different things depending on what context you're in. And so if you're talking about work in process, details is all of these things. If you're talking about inventory, details are these things. If you're talking about literature, details mean these things. And as long as you put it together, I have used in my fiddling around with my sample database, I've set all of my buildings up B with a B in front, because I want to capture all of my repair costs for my buildings and all of my utility costs for my buildings with so I set it up as a detail so I could capture that cost. I hope you understand that. But the most important thing for our little class example today is that I have my literature set up with an L in front: Christ's Object Lessons, Desire of Ages, Patriarchs and Prophets, and Steps to Christ. So these are our literature that we are passing out in our region, and we're keeping track of. Okay, so we've set up a literature account that has fund, function, and restriction mandatory, but also SDA organization and details. Now, the way we are going to use this account is not the purest best way to do accounting. The purest best way to do accounting is when we buy the literature, we put it in an inventory account, and then when we distribute the literature, we take it out of the inventory account and put it into expense. And if it is a materially large part of your situation, that is exactly what you should do. But if it's a you're not that awfully concerned about capturing it as an inventory item and would like to expense all of that, okay, that's what the approach that we're taking in our class today, that we want to expense it whenever we buy it. However, we would also like to keep track in our system here of two very important things that are related. We'd like to keep track of how much of the materials do we still have back there in the closet. Okay, they've been expensed. We're not talking about a balance of the inventory account, and we're not talking about item count and inventory. All we want is a simple little information of how much do we still have back in the closet, and of each of those types of books. How many Steps to Christ are still back there, how many Desire of Ages, and so forth. We would also like to keep track of how many have we distributed of each of those, and who got them. Are they being distributed fairly amongst our organization? Are the unions getting their fair share? Or my missions getting the fair share? Okay, and so what we'd like to do is keep track of how many we buy, and then when they go out, where did they go? How many went to each of the different places? And then how many do we have left? And so that's the nature of our project today. And so let's go ahead and get started. So we're talking about 868779. So let's exit that. And let's start by making a little purchase of this literature. So we're going to do ledger entry, and we'll just go to JV here. Okay. So now we're going back over to we're going to go ahead and record purchasing some of these items. And so here's our purchase, and so we go purchase, literature purchase. It's just making up something there. And this was in account 86 something. Let's open that baby up. Literature expense. All right, and purchase 30,000 steps to Christ. Okay, and we paid $3,000 for them. Just guessing at numbers there. And that's the debit. This is the expense account here. and the function is, let's say they were purchased for evangelism. All right. The restriction was allocated, tithe allocated, something like that. SDA organization. Now, when we buy the Steps to Christ, we're not interested in tracking the organization. When we distribute them, we want to know who got them. So in this case, we're happy with just going with a not analyzed. Okay? We don't care so much about trying to track the fact that we bought them. We know we bought them. All right? Details would be the Steps to Christ. All right? And 3,000. And so now this entry, as far as I could tell, transaction date is today, and transaction period, let's put in 03, okay, of 2009. All right, and I have already made lots of entries to make this a rich example for you. This would be an entry of many, a part of many other entries being made. So far, there's nothing new for you to have learned here. Everything is exactly right. If you're a beginner, you may just now be seeing the value of using the details as a way we're keeping track of how much we bought. And so based on what we've done so far and what you know so far, is that this will help us keep track of the cost of money that we have paid toward buying Steps to Christ. Well, that right in itself is pretty cool. But now I want to go and bring your attention to this memo amount. Every time I show this to people, they say, wow, that is wild. I never ever knew what that was all about, or I've seen that memo amount my entire career with Sun Plus, but I didn't know what to do with it. So the purpose of our class today is to teach you about the memo amount field. The memo amount field is just another field on the transaction record, like every other field here is a field. And the base amount, or the currency amount, is right here. The memo amount can be any other numerical amount you want to keep track of connected to the transaction. So one of my favorite things to do in my seminars is to brainstorm with everyone in the group of what are some things, numerical amounts we would like to keep track of with transactions. One example would be we pay the electricity bill. Well, how much kilowatts of electricity are we buying when we pay the electricity bill? Well, we could enter the kilowatt hours that we used up and the amount of electricity we use there. And so this would be the amount of electricity, and this would be the dollar that we paid for it. And so then we can make a report of how much electricity we're using versus how much electricity we're paying for. So we could say, or is our rising electricity bill caused because we're using more electricity, or because they're charging us more for the electricity we're using? Okay, and so another example is, suppose we hire someone to do some contract work for us, and so this is what could be the amount we're paying them for the contract work, and this could be the number of hours they worked for the contract work. So we could have 30 here and 3,000 up there, or something of that sort. 30 hours, 3,000 pay. Anytime we want to keep track of a numerical amount. Well, in this case, we're trying to keep track of the number of Steps to Christ that we bought. And in this case, we got 30,000 Steps to Christ. So we're indicating, if I have the right number of zeros there, we're indicating that we have bought 30,000 Steps to Christ. And so this will go up. And so now we'll go to a new line and just get this entry recorded. We'll go ahead and get the cash side of it going. Let me get us a good cash account here. And this is our 3,000. go. And I think I am okay. And we could post that baby. And then it posts. All right, now in comes the union presidents or representatives from the unions, our field organizations, and they pick up some literature, okay? And let's just say the literature pickup, I'm not sure I'm spelling literature very well, by, and then this could be West, literature pickup, and so we put that up, and so the account code is still the 86, 879, our literature account, okay, literature expense, and to get the organization it's picking up, I got to take a peek to see a name of an organization. So we have East Atlantic. Okay, so East Atlantic is picking up the literature, and so we're East Atlantic literature pickup. Okay, now we're not trying to keep track of the dollar amount of what they have picked up. Okay, all we want to keep track of is all we're trying to keep track of is how much they got. Okay, so we know how much we have left, and also we could talk about, did everyone get a fair amount? All right, so we could just come along here, and this would be unallocated, or tithe allocated. All right, but the cool thing here is that they got some steps to Christ here of, right, and they picked up right here, down here, memo amount, the topic of our presentation, they picked up 3,000 steps to Christ. Okay, now the neat thing here is that this, and they picked it up on 09, okay, 02, 03/2009, okay, third period of 2009. They're picking up literature, and so that is a reduction, but a reduction of the number of steps to Christ that are there. So we do a new line, all right, and still the same account code, 86,799. They have, and now we want to record them picking up, and so we've got this is a East Atlantic. Did I get the right one? Yeah, East Atlantic. And they also picked up, besides the steps to Christ, they also picked up some Desire of Ages. Okay? So they picked up 100 Desire of Ages. Or let's give them 300. They're very evangelistic. And it's the evangelism fund is what we're dealing with. All right, and the restriction. All right, and I believe we're done here. It's the third period. It's the date here. All right, now, so we've got this. Now, the cool thing is that we have two lines. So if you looked at our grid view, you could see we have two lines of data only. No debit or credit discussion about debits or credits. All right, so we're reducing the number of items that we have in there, and so we do post, and that baby post. That's almost weird. All right, so then, so we've made this entry here, and you can see the JV comes up without any amounts in the normal debit and credit area. However, we do have an entry of sorts being made into the memo amount. Okay, so the memo amount there, and we have an entries of sorts being made there. All right, so now we go back over to Q&A. In Q&A, we could see, there we go, I'll get to Q&A in a minute. There we go. All right, I made a little report in Q&A, and let's just work with it, see what we've got. All right, so this little sheet here is a report that is the transactions, the credit transactions in the month, and this page here is a total of the net of the transactions. Let me open this up, explain it to you better. All right, so it's just a normal filtering into the account for the period, and here we're saying just pick up the credit transactions because we want to know where did our literature go, what went and where did it go, and so, but instead of putting base amount, which we've always done, now we're putting out memo amount. So this is dealing with the quantity of those books. All right, dealing with the quantity of the books. And so, and this one is very similar. The balance of this query is very similar, except for now we're not filtering by only the credits. We're just adding up all of the transactions. So conceptually, this is similar to the idea of saying what is the balance of an account, but instead of the dollar value balance of the account, we're talking about the items, the balance of the items. The memo amount is right here, you see, so it's right here. It came over there. And so we'll extract the sheet, and let's just extract it. And so this sheet right here is the net transactions, and we can drill down. We can expand on those transactions by talking about, well, what about the books that went out? What were the balances of the books that went out? And so there you could see this is the books that went out. All right, and where did they go? And we could expand again on org ID. Okay, and we have which of our organizations got how many books did they get. Now remember, and I think you're clear on it, but let's make sure that you understand, this is the quantity of books. This is not the dollar value. All right. Over here we have the balance of the books that we have back in the storeroom. We could expand on that by details, and we get the balance of the books that we have left back in the room. So we ought to be able to go back in the room and look at it. And these were just simple little reports. That is, you could do the exact same concepts of beginning balances, distribution to each of the places that it went, and ending balance. You could make as fine a report as you wanted to make, and just with every concept you know about Q&A, except for instead of working with the base amount, the accounting figure, you work with the memo amount, which will be the item, the number of items that we went. So this went with. So this is really a cool functionality that can be used with anything that you want to keep track of that's a numerical amount.